All righty. Obviously, not post-game show we wanted to start here on Mother's Day. I know there's a lot of moms out there who root for the Knicks, whether it's because they are fans of the team on their own, or because they just follow the team because they have a child that is a fan of them, as my mom does. But we wish Happy Mother's Day to all of them to start, because moms are awesome, and this is certainly not how we wanted to repay them, with a post game that is starting 3 minutes and 51 seconds before this game is over, which tells you basically all you need to know. I don't think I have a ton to say about this one. I don't know that there really is a lot to say about this game. It is all about what you can say and what you can assume, and what it would be irresponsible to assume about things moving forward. Before I say what little I do have to say about this game, I think the smartest thing that I've heard anybody say is what JJ Redick said a few minutes ago, which is that you could lose by whatever, 25, 30, 35, 50 points, whatever the case may be. It still only counts as one game. And for as many questions I have about where this Knicks team is at right now and what they are capable of doing and what they may finally be incapable of doing, the one thing that I don't really have much question about is their resolve. And I understand that it may be tempting to question their resolve on a day where they went down by as many as, 30 some odd points. I don't think the lead ever reached 40 points. I don't think the lead ever reached 40 points, but I'll double check that right now. It did reach 40. Did it go over 40?
103.63 at the end of the
so we got up to 40.
Yeah.
43, actually. Excuse me. Yeah, 43 points. So, yeah, it might sound silly to not question their resolve on a day that they went down by this much, and where really, this thing was, it was 34-11 in the first quarter, but I'm not going to question their resolve, because I think mentally, emotionally, all those things, I think they will put this behind them. And if anything, I think they will use the fact that they had to sit there, a lot of them, for most of the second half, most of their primary rotation players for a lot of the second half, and look at the Pacers, dance around and celebrate this win like this was the win that is going to send Indiana to the Eastern Conference Finals. Again, Jalen Brunson has said it multiple times this postseason. If you need extra motivation, you're probably not in the right business. It would not be surprising if, to the extent that they could find any more motivation, they did, going into Game 5 at home, based on how they just watched the Pacers stomp all over them like they were dirt on a back road. Again, that I'm not worried about, and but unfortunately, that is only part of the story, because the unfortunate part of the story is that this was far more than just Knicks weren't hitting shots and everything was falling for the Pacers. Yeah, that had a lot to do with it. They were down by, I think, 32 points at halftime. No, they were down by 28 points at halftime. Excuse me. They were down by 28 points at halftime. Pacers had made 10 threes. Knicks had made 2. So it's a 24-point difference right there. You're down by 28. So you want to chalk it up, to hot shooting versus incredibly cold shooting. Yeah, that has something to do with it. But it's more than that. It, I think, it's two different conversations. The first conversation is on the defensive end, where the Pacers, at times throughout this series, have looked like a team for which, not that the Knicks did not have answers for, but they had the Knicks number. As Benji is fond of saying, they put you in the blender. And when they put you in the blender, it's ugly. And I think, from the opening tip tonight And for the entire relevant portion of this game, the Pacers had the Knicks in the blender. And that is something that we have not seen. Not for a whole game. We've seen it for portions of games. We've seen it even for like entire quarters of games. But we haven't seen it for an entire game, an entire half, let alone an entire game. So are the Knicks capable of playing better defense? Yes. But what does it take to play that level of defense? It takes not only mental fortitude, but just plain energy. You have to physically be able to do it. And I wonder how much the fact that we started this series, the Knicks had gotten 3 days off. They had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and obviously the majority of Monday off before they played game 1. And then it started, and then they again quick turnaround, but again you still had some reserves of energy because you had those 3 days, those 3+ days going into game 2. And then game 3, I thought we started to see it fall off when the Pacers were sitting there with 77, 78 something points early in the third quarter. And then the Knicks put together it wasn't even 10 minutes. It was a 9-minute stretch of basketball where they found something defensively that it didn't look like they had left. And that's what got them back in that game. And then what happened after that 9-minute stretch, they still defended okay, but they ran out of gas on offense. So the first question is, what do they have left in the tank in terms of the ability to defend this Pacer team and really reach down and find something else that they did not have in the slightest in this game? And I said that's question number 1. That's not question number 1. That's question number 2. Question number 1 is Jalen Brunson. And I don't know whether game 2, when he scored 24 points after halftime, was adrenaline. I don't know if that was whatever they maybe shot him up with at halftime, muscle memory, guile, whatever you want to call it. He found a way. He found a way in game 2, and then 2 things happened. 3 things happened, but the third, I'm going to put a distant third. The first thing that happened was his foot, ankle, whatever the hell it is not right. And you saw it tonight. Couldn't get any lift. All the shots were short. Missed a shot at the rim that he will make. Forget 9 times out of 10. He'll make 97 times out of 100. Can't move laterally. I think that's obviously affecting his defense as much as his offense. The shiftiness is gone. So question number 1, how much can he get that back before game 5? And then obviously moving on in the series, and we'll see how relevant it is that they have 3 games off between game 5 and game 6. So how much of that can he get back? Can he look like, he's not going to look like 100% of Jalen Brunson by game 5, but can he look like 10% more like Jalen Brunson than he does right now? 5% more? 8% more? 12% more? I don't know. That's question number 1. Or thing number 1. Thing number 2 is this series has been called very differently, and I thought that manifested itself more in game 3, but I think you could argue that it manifested itself tonight too. I mean, I forget who it was, if it was Doris Burke or JJ Redick on the broadcast tonight when TJ McConnell was called for a foul on Brunson. I think said something along the lines of like, well, that was at least the third time he fouled him, and it's the first one that was called. I think they meant on that possession. So the Pacers are testing their limits because their coach went out there and said what he said and made sure that the Pacers were going to be able to test their limits. And you're seeing that manifesting, and like in not only the physical coverage, but like very clear landing area foul in the first quarter, very, very early in the first quarter. Nesmith encroaches, doesn't get called. The entire broadcast was on it. Nothing. So they've changed the way that they've called the series. That's number 2. And then number 3, and I'll put it at a distant third because really it's only a byproduct of number 2, which is they put Nesmith on him. But again, if it's you don't have number one, which is if Brunson was Brunson, Neesmith would be burnt toast. Number two, if they weren't calling the series like they're calling it now, Neesmith would be toast. So you get either number one or number two, and not take it off the list. And number three doesn't matter, which is why I hesitate to put the Neesmith switch even on the list. But I'll at least mention it. So, how much can Brunson look like Brunson? As far as everybody else on, I mean, look, the Knicks are like they were cold tonight. If they had been hot instead of cold, or they had been mediocre instead of cold, maybe it's it's the lead isn't. Maybe the lead is in the high teens at halftime. And you know what? Maybe the fact that they were ice cold, maybe that's for the best. And maybe it's for the best because at the very least there was no run in this game. There was no fake Knick comeback, and like the guys got their rest. Now I'm sure there's going to be comments tonight that why didn't they take Brunson out earlier? Why didn't they take DiVincenzo out earlier? I'm not going to sit here and lose my shit about an extra 4 or 5 minutes. If you want to lose your mind about it, that's fine. I'll honor whatever super chat you want to send in. I'm not going to yell at you. People are angry. I get it. But they got some rest, or at least a lot more rest than they have been getting. And like, given how they defended in that third quarter, I can't say that anything they did in the third quarter was all particularly strenuous on any of the guys that did play after halftime. So, you hope that they're going to be rested. And that's really all you can hope for. I think I will be curious if there's a starting lineup change. Obviously, Deuce McBride started in the starting lineup coming out of the second half. I wonder, obviously Thibodeau wanted to get a look at that. It's small, and this is a Pacer team that suddenly is quicker to the ball on both ends of the floor in terms of rebounding. So you put Deuce out there, all of a sudden you're going to start 4 guys who are 6'4" or under. Can you make that work on the boards, especially with Isaiah Hartenstein potentially compromised because he got hurt in this game, just to add another name onto the list. So I don't know. It makes you quicker on defense, gives you more shooting on offense. Is it worth the trade-off? Well, we'll find out in a couple days. And then, the Jericho Sims minutes have obviously been a disaster. Does he go to Sims again? Does he stick with a 7-man rotation? Does he give Burks more run? We saw Shake Milton in this game. Is there a possibility to see Shake Milton, in a small role in a couple nights? I mean, at this point, I'm not going to say that anything's on the table because, again, it's never as bad as it seems when you get killed. It's never as good as it seems when you win a big game. But, I'll say this. It wouldn't utterly shock me. But, at the end of the day, like, this team, look, might be famous last words, but this team might just be out of gas. And the most prescient thing I have heard anybody say for the entire postseason, and maybe the most prescient thing I have heard anybody say this year, is something that DJ Zullo has been saying. He said it, I think, after the news came down that Bogdanović was going to be out for the rest of the season. He said it then for the first time, and he said it a few times since then. And keep in mind, since then, Mitchell Robinson's gone down, OG Anunoby's gone down, and now Brunson is compromised. And the term that he keeps using is critical mass. Have the Knicks reached a critical mass where they just sustained one injury too many? And, like, you can make an argument that they sustained one injury too many when Bogey went down, and you added that to Randall, and you expected them to win this series. That was before we found out about Mitchell Robinson being down for the year. And that was before OG Anunoby went down and has now missed 2 straight games, or 2.5 games, and is going to miss a third. And that was before we got the injury to Jalen Brunson. So all of these things together, which is why the other thing I'm sure I'm going to hear tonight is this is the coach's fault because he plays these guys a million minutes. Look, injuries happen. They're unfortunate. I had someone who was an actual medical doctor on this very podcast a few days ago, and I asked him point blank. I didn't try to duck the topic. Is this are these overused things? The OG thing, is that an overused thing? The Brunson thing, is that an overused thing? And he looked at me and he's like, not really. Not to the point where you should be, where you're looking at these things and being like, oh yeah, that's definitely related to that. Like, does it have something to do with it? Yeah, it has something to do with it, just because all of these things play a factor. But it's bad luck. It's bad luck, and they're beat, and you want to ask them to find a way. You want to ask them to find it within themselves to come up with. That's the thing, is like, you can't even say come up with one more big performance, because it's not just one more big performance. They got to come up with two more big performances to get to the next round. You'd love to see it. It would be such a shame if the season ended like this. And at the same time, like, if this is how it goes down, would it be unfortunate? Yeah. Would it put a sour taste in everybody's mouth? Yeah. Should it lessen our pride in this team and lessen our enjoyment in what the season has been? I don't think so. But we don't want to get out of ourselves. Look, they still have home court advantage, and they're going home for Game 5. Series is far from over. I know people will think that it's over. Series is far from over. Let's see what they come out with on Tuesday night at home in what I'm sure will be a energetic Madison Square Garden. And let's hope the Garden can keep that energy, even if they get hit in the face once or twice early, which, again, you figure the Pacers are going to come out ready to play.